My name is Ethel Richards. I'm a food as medicine clinical community nutritionist. I'm also a practical theologian and an author. I do many things in the world, and one of the things is not being boxed in. So, as a food as medicine clinical community nutritionist, what I do is promote the power of eating more plants. I have a trademark tagline that says, "Take your health back one meal at a time by eating more plants." And the idea is to get people to eat more of things that give them life and serve them well. It's not an anti-animal campaign for any of the animal food products, but it is a campaign to say, put more life-giving things on your plate. And what I found is that when people do that, they start to say they feel better. Their morning experiences feel better in the bathroom. They have more clarity, they sleep better. How does that show up in the world? It shows up in a couple different ways. Everything from preaching in the pulpit, connecting it to faith and theology, to culinary nutrition classes where I'm teaching people how to prepare healthy meals, to educating them on how to shop, how to store your food, how to select your food. Supporting our small Black farmers is really important to me. And then it shows up in clinic, where I coach patients and clients, depending on how they get to me, on their particular chronic diseases. And we're making dietary changes, but we're also addressing attitudes, mindsets, behaviors, and beliefs as a part of the coaching experience. And it's more than just what's on your plate. There's a whole slew of decisions that come that go into that moment. Am I tired? Am I rushed? Am I pressed for time? Do I feel like cooking? Do I want to cook? Do I have the food? There's all these things. Am I feeling good about myself today? That determines what someone chooses to put in the garden of their bodies. So we have those conversations, we come up with strategies, and ultimately it kind of mirrors therapy in a sense where I allow them to come up with the strategy or the ideas, and I just help guide them with a little structure and say, let's give it a try, or have you considered this? And sometimes I throw in some methods if needed, just to help bring some structure to their journey and give them something that they can measurably see that they're making progress. So that's the food as medicine side. I probably should also say I present at national conferences and international conferences on different topics related to food as medicine, showing them just the impacts that are happening right in my clinic in Atlanta, Metro Atlanta. As a practical theologian, I feel like I'm a jokester, but not because I'm trying to be, but I get to say little sly things and tie it to food to get people to see sometimes how ridiculous we sound with the stories we tell ourselves about why we're doing something. And I do it in a way where it lowers the barrier. People can laugh with me and also laugh at themselves and see you know what, that does kind of make sense. I feel empowered to do better. And then as an author, my second book is similar to the first. It's just a second edition. It's a Daniel Fast-focused book. It's the idea of wrapping eating more plants into a faith context. And so I give them a calendar, a meal plan, recipes right from my kitchen that have been tested by my family, who can be the toughest critics sometimes. But they all enjoy them. I enjoy them. And I'm excited to share this book with the world. And I have some other projects coming out. And I feel like I'm just embracing this, and maybe next steps might be, one more thing. Let me go back. Also, with working with Black farmers, I've been able to connect them with churches and actually pilot a CSA program at the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church where we actually remove the access gap. We have so many different people coming to Fourth Ward every Sunday for fellowship, and then throughout the week for other things. So it was what if we bring the farmer to the church? What does this look like? So I was in my happy zone running that program because I get to work with my farmers, but I also get to work on the front lines with the parishioners that are participating. And then there's an element of managing church leadership. So there's that dynamic. And then the community who finds out how come I can't get in? And it's can we squeeze them in? Come on, farmer. And then managing all these personalities and giving recipes and doing videos, it literally was a comprehensive experience. And so we showed that you can address food apartheid. You could address food sovereignty. You can address health sovereignty. Just bring the food to where the people are. And the farmers will tell me, I have all this food. I'm having a hard time pushing it out there. And churches are faith traditions, period. I don't care if it's a mosque or a synagogue or a temple. That's a captive audience at some point during the week. That is an ideal space to solve access to high quality food. And honestly, I would love to see more churches be type of, we say resilience hubs, and a lot of time we talk about, solar panels and climate, but resilience hub for health and food sovereignty. And let's not say like and or we can just do it together. It's a part of the big picture. So as we think about giving people like housing stability and workforce development, none of that matters if people are not eating food that gets them to work, eating foods that gives them strength to even want to clean their houses. And I would love to see us like just marrying all this together and working together and not duplicating things. Like if one church has a garden nearby and another church doesn't, maybe that church focuses on growing the food and another church focuses on outreach, or maybe that's where we hold the classes. I don't know, but I have such big ideas and I struggle with the tension of let's do it now. But I know it takes time. So that's how I show up in the world. And I feel like I want to meet every faith leader, every pastor out there, because I want to just share this joy with them that you can be healthy. And I believe that. And as you get healthy, your parishioners are going to naturally follow suit because they have so much confidence in you and so much faith in you. And so I am after faith leaders to reduce those waistlines and, to the extent we can, get off of dialysis, reduce that medication. It's possible when we catch it early enough and we really embrace, I believe, the food that our Creator gave us to thrive. And I'll round this out by saying, people will say like, oh, yeah, but I eat this and I'm fine. That's true because the body's adaptable. Isn't that an amazing Creator that would make you so adaptable and give you choice? But we were designed to thrive off of foods that have life, not foods that are dead. And while there is some value, we can argue, nutritional value, that's adaptable. And at some point, your body's going to say, no more. I'm tired. But I promise you, at 43, I've been eating plants. And it feels good. It feels liberating. I've been comparing pictures to high school. I'm like, man, I didn't really change that much. But this is a testament to the power of eating more plants. And one of the things we said was that we have to kind of be the witness of what we're championing. So in my case, it's eating more plants and loving our earth so that it loves us back with nutrient-dense foods. In other people's cases, it might be forest conservation and not burning stuff, In somebody else's case, it could be water preservation. Like, it shows up differently, and that's what I love about, like, just the interfaith experience of this and, like, the intercultural experience of this is, like, we're all doing really important work together, and we're showing up for our communities in ways that add value and give life. So I will just round it out by saying that because to me, that's the value of eating more plants. That's the value of what I do. I believe that's why I was born and why I'm here. And I want to live to be 120. So that way I can transcend generations and continue to show and share the power of loving our environment and eating more plants. Well, it's a big story. I feel like I've been some sort of natural disruptor my whole life. I didn't even know that's like a new term now. But back then we would say I just never fit in. And I thought that was a bad thing, perhaps until recently, until I began to just embrace my authentic self and who I believe God created me to be and not relying on other people to validate who that is because they can't. It wasn't a conference call when God said, hey, Ethel, I want you to lead the charge on eating more plants and what that looks like. So I am a preacher's kid, and my grandfather was the bishop. I always say I was born on the front pew. That's what it feels like. You're in church all the time, and I think it has its pros and cons. You see a lot, you hear a lot, and sometimes they think, oh, they're little, they're not listening. Oh, I'm listening and I'm watching. I was a very quiet baby. I was told very quiet. child, I wouldn't talk, but then apparently when I learned how to talk, they couldn't shut me up. So naturally, so children that talk a lot get labeled as bossy, but really we're leaders. We're cultivating our gift. We just have to learn a little bit of, boundaries. So I just remember there's a moment in the Black church experience called testimony service where people are allowed to share something God did for them or something they want the church to join them in prayer about. And by the time I was about 10 or 12, I was frustrated with this testimony service. One, because it went too long. But two, because I kept hearing the same stories and I kept thinking like, there's got to be something that we could do about this. So the testimonies were, I went to the doctor and he told me I had sugar, but God is a healer. And, I'm not going to take the medicine because I believe God's going to heal me and pray my strength in the Lord. And then you hear the next person get up and the Lord told me I had pressure. And the doctor said I had pressure. No, it's what you eat. But I think the tipping point was when this lady got up and said, and he told me I had pressure. So in other words, high blood pressure. And he don't know what he's talking about. And I'm not taking this medication because I believe God's going to heal me. Amen. Hallelujah. And then everybody starts, celebrating that God is a healer, which is true. But I'm like, absolutely not. Like, there has to be something we can do. And I barged in my mom's room, which is a no-no. You don't just bust in your parents' room. And I said, Mom, God can't use you beat up and broke down. And I'm just lamenting. And she's like, whoa, what's going on? And I began to tell her about the pain I was experiencing listening to this. And I said, this can't be it, Mom. I'm like, how can we say God is this amazing person to us and we can barely do perhaps what he's asking us because we can't walk, because we're in and out of the hospital, because we can't breathe, because we have pressure or we have sugar. And she explained the finer points of grace to me in that moment. But she also in some motherly way deputized me to do something about it. And I didn't know what that was then, other than, well, maybe I should go to medical school because then people will listen to me. I will have authority. I will have, the white coat, and I'll be able to tell them, and then I can fix them in my young mind. And then testimony service will be different. And that's just the mind of a preteen. And then a few years later, my grandmother began to really experience the effects of her dietary lifestyle. She began to, so it went from a simple water pill for pressure management, for blood pressure management, to needing cardiac bypass, where they replaced essentially a portion of her ascending aorta and some other things. That's significant. And that was a surgery at that time that was still fairly novel. Gave her about another 15 more years, but I watched her go through that. And I remember seeing her coming out of the OR, still sedated. That's a really horrific look. I don't know that family should be allowed in the hallway at that point because the tongue is hanging out. But I just remember seeing her hooked up to all these tubes. And in that moment, I was like, don't cry, because you don't want her to see you crying, because then that might upset her and maybe that will hurt her. But I remember saying, I am not going out like this. If there is something I can do, blood pressure is not going to kill me. Heart disease is not going to kill me. I got to go find a cure, something. And that was, I think, the starting point of this journey. And what I believe the Lord put inside of me didn't even exist until 10 years ago, the program that I needed. But during this time, I was invited to churches as just this young kid talking about nutrition and education. Come talk to us about health. I found a presentation I did in 1996 on heart disease, physical activity, and eating more plants. And I was like, oh, so this has really been a thing. And when I was cleaning up some of my grandfather's things, I found his briefcase. And I opened it up, and it was like this moment where I felt his spirit, because in that briefcase was his business plans and strategy plans. He set up food stands in the community to bring in fresh produce in North Philadelphia. He was like this community activist, and he was so big on making sure people had access to healthy food. And in that moment, I was like, oh, like that's where it comes from. Had no idea. He did other things. He was a locksmith, all that stuff. But I realized this wasn't just some coincidence that I liked plants or I wanted people to be healthy. This was just a part of my DNA. And I couldn't get away from it, but in classic form, I was like, I'm just going to follow the money. I'm going to go study this. And everything I feel like that I've experienced and been through has brought me right back to this moment of, no, you need to really use your voice, because I gave you a voice, and you need to tell people about the power of eating more plants. So during the pandemic, I had a lot of time, like a lot of people, to actually sit still for the first time in my life. And in that moment, I just sat and I just really leaned into purpose. And I spent like a year, almost 2 years, just quiet and praying and reading and listening to Miles Monroe teach on purpose. And it became so clear to me that I was supposed to take up this charge and get going. That's where the name iEatMorePlants came from during that time of reflection. I'd already gone to culinary school, by the way, to be a plant-based chef, because it was just something I wanted. And I was like, well, if you don't do it, if you're going to get older, you might as well just do it. Just do it. So, but I was doing it for me. I had no intentions of ever using it for other people. I was really just thinking about myself and making sure that I did not succumb to heart disease. And it kind of just took off from there. I became a private chef. I started teaching more. The program at the National University of Natural Medicine in Portland, Oregon started during the pandemic. During the time I was sitting trying to figure out what this was I was feeling inside of me all these years. And I'm like, the reason I couldn't walk into it because it was being formulated, like it was being built. And even Loma Linda was building their first PhD in like none of these things existed. So it explains the tension and the movement and all these open doors, closed doors. It's starting to somewhat make sense, but it just goes to show that timing is everything. So that's the story, essentially in a nutshell, and why I'm passionate about it. And I guess I would say, you know, in my formative years when I was an administrative resident at Fox Chase, you say like, oh, I'm really passionate about this, I'm really passionate about that. But no, I don't think that, I think that was just words. Because now that I know my purpose, I don't even know that I have to say I'm passionate about plants. It shows up. It is who I am. It is what I do. And it's very hard. You guys heard all week long. People said something. I was like, wait, what? We're not having plants? Like, you know, people would just do little things to see if I was listening or make little comments. But it's very clear. So I came to Loka because, well, I asked to come and I applied like a lot of people. But I was trying to figure out this intersection of faith, food, and farming and how I could help with that, because you have Green the Church doing a lot of stuff with Black churches and environmentally sustainable buildings. You have Black Church Food Security Network trying to get churches to either start gardens or use their gardens more efficiently. And then here I am, who knows what to do with the food you're growing, who understands the power of what plant-forward diet does for soil health, for the climate. It's just a nice way to be a climate activist by eating plants and trying to figure out what that is. And so that's how I got here. But that is my story of how iEatMorePlants started, how I sometimes I feel like I fell backwards into this. This was not a part of my little plan that I wrote out when I was 7 of what I wanted to be when I grew up. I said I was going to be a ballerina and a business person. That's what I said in 2nd grade. I never thought any of this would be. And as a 3rd generation preacher, I never saw that coming either. In fact, I I was anti wanting to do that. I was like, no, don't want that pedestal. Who would sign up for that pressure? You're the bishop's granddaughter. Your mother is an elder, an ordained elder in a church. And then you start to discern the call. It's unsettling. And I didn't want to do it. And I ignored it for many years. And until it came to a do or die moment where I believe the Lord says, so you got an option. You can either say yes and walk in this, or come on home with me. I was like, I think I'll go ahead and say yes, And it was I just embraced it at that point. That is who I am. And yeah, so I will speak from almost any pulpit. Like today, this is my pulpit. Tomorrow, it could be in front of a tree or in a cab. I just am very practical in sharing my faith and loving on people and getting them also to love food. And I think the Lord has given me a youthfulness and an energy that just makes people want to try, even if they don't want to. They'll just, I'm going to do it because you're just so pumped. It's got to be good. Yeah. The experience has been life-changing. I feel like I text my friend the very first day. I don't even think we got to the end of Monday or Tuesday. I don't even know the days anymore. But I said, I feel like I have learned more about God in the first 4 or 5 hours of being here than I have ever learned in the 43 years of listening about God from the pulpit. This interfaith space has been so healing for me on so many levels. One thing that stood out was all of our faith traditions are rooted in love and kindness and compassion and in honoring humanity. And the question I ask myself is, if that is true and 85% of people subscribe to a faith, why is this world so wicked? Why are people so mean and not present and moving at the speed of what to accomplish what? Like we're running to our graves. We're not embracing the beauty around us. And perhaps they may subscribe, but truly aren't. I don't know the word, but they are not really authentic about it. It's just another title. And maybe that number is a lot lower. Because the people here today, I'm like, if the world were like the people in this room, we would be all loving tree huggers. The waterways would be better. We could solve climate change in 2.5 years. Yeah. So that's been one thing. And I feel like my heart has been so lifted and open just to be around so many people and hearing about their faith traditions and seeing parallels. And that's one of the statements I made in our session was, we all have similar stories of origin, similar stories of events that have happened over time. And perhaps these are all just different cultural expressions of the same thing. Perhaps we're all really talking about the same creator. Perhaps we're all really marching to the same beat of the same drum. It just looks different because geographically we saw it from a different angle, through a different lens. It's like everyone being at the scene of an accident, but everybody saw something different. It doesn't invalidate that experience, that cultural expression. And I think I have such a more deeper respect and honor for my brothers and sisters who are in other faith traditions. And I just look forward to building more relationships in this way. And I'm comfortable saying this because I already can hear some people in my faith tradition like, oh, she done crossed over and she done lost her mind. No, it doesn't change my conviction. I still love everyone. And at the end of the day, we all have to eat. We all need clean water. We all have to drink. And if you mean to tell me who you serve is getting in the way, that's a problem. And I think the polarization is what is getting us into trouble. I think I am going to take the comfort of reaching out to other local faith traditions and leaders in my community to share this experience is the first thing, and ask them perhaps, how we could develop a relationship where I could share my joy of plants in their community and what that can look like, and learn perhaps what physical customs I might need to adapt to be in those spaces, such as covering my hair or maybe wearing a longer garb or whatever it is, to share, because this message, again, transcends everything. So I think that's one thing I will take away. Also, I have to finish my homework. But intentionally didn't push to complete it because there were insights that I needed from this experience, so that now I can, when I go back and do the second half of interviews in the community, they will be so much more rich and so much more informed. I'll have more confidence to be able to really articulate, and I'll be able to be comfortable sitting in silence as people are thinking about even how to respond to what I'm asking, and encourage them to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which I think is okay. And I want to, I don't know if this is 10 years out, maybe it's 10 years out, but I would love to do an assessment of all the churches, just starting with the first, county or two near me, and determine who has gardens and who doesn't. And then put together, start with the 1%, like those who have gardens, and then find out, okay, do you have a garden? Do you also have a health ministry? And then if you don't have gardens, but you have a health ministry, what does that look like? And do a little GIS mapping to see where things are, and kind of have that network. And I like repeatable processes, and I like to build things that can transcend other geographies. So that is something I want to, yesterday became very clear, like this is what's needed. But there is some low-hanging fruit of things that I can do, because that is a much bigger project. But thinking about how it can be funded, funding the research and the work and all that stuff. So I'm taking that away. And I just want to, I know we keep saying WhatsApp. I want to get in WhatsApp because I just want to be able to talk to people. That's how I keep in touch as I travel the world over the years. I thank God for WhatsApp, but before it was calling cards. Be able to keep in touch with people in my homeroom, but in other homerooms, and then maybe like all together, so that we can share ideas, get support, and maybe even go physically to help someone else with their project, maybe their launch or something, or just knowing what people are doing makes networking powerful. Because I can say, oh, I met someone here, maybe you all should talk. And so that is something I want to take away. And then also I feel like you all at Loka are now like my official professors and family, and I want to, I know we can, because you guys always say keep in touch and still grow and learn. And I don't see this finishing at the end of the year. I see this is really the beginning, and planning takes the most amount of time. Execution is easy. It's the planning, getting all that. And so just leaning into your intellectual knowledge and even potential resources as it makes sense for things, I think is something I'm taking with me. And also I would love to come back here for a personal retreat and explore more of the grounds. So that's it. And the food has been amazing. Y'all really did my heart good.